Alright, here's a dumb, pedantic quickie for you. So, I played the Pikmin 4 demo, and it was great. It's Pikmin. Pikmin is awesome. I was gonna buy this day one with or without a demo, I only played it because it was there. And I realize what a ridiculous quibble this is, but for all the things this game gets right, which is everything of real importance, I got really annoyed when I reached the Rescue Corps' ship and was reintroduced to the concept of Sparklium. See, like most first-party Nintendo IPs, Pikmin doesn't place a huge emphasis on its characters and narrative, but it does place a little emphasis on them, and it also places a surprising amount of emphasis on its lore and world-building elements. The Pikmin planet has always been implied to be a post-apocalyptic Earth, for example, but what I'm really getting at here is that the narrative setups and the game-wide objectives which accompany them have always made sense and felt thought out, however basic they may be. In Pikmin 1, Olimar is basically Fry from Futurama, right? He's a space delivery guy, he works for an alien freight company, and he's a terrible pilot. His ship gets hit by an asteroid above the Pikmin planet, and many critical components needed for its functioning were ejected and lost as it fell into orbit. Thus, when Olimar awakens by the wreckage of his vehicle, he quickly realizes that if he ever wants to return home to his wife and kids, he needs to collect the missing pieces of his ship, and so that's your objective in Pikmin 1. He also has only a limited number of days to accomplish this, because the planet's atmosphere is rich with oxygen, which is toxic to his species. The way the ship parts scatter across the planet's surface during the crash, and the way they conveniently slot back into the ship when you bring them back, is pretty cartoony, sure, but it matches the game's aesthetic, and overall, the premise makes sense. It's elegantly simple, yet compelling, and it makes sense. Pikmin 2, then, opens right where the good ending of Pikmin 1 left off, with Olimar successfully leaving the planet on his repaired ship and making his way back to his home planet of Hocotate. Upon his arrival, we find that Hocotate Freight, the company which employs him, went under financially in the month or so that he was gone for. And due to Hocotate Freight's bankruptcy, the instant Olimar lands, his ship is repossessed. The lifeline he spent the entirety of the first game desperately cobbling back together is unceremoniously yanked right out of his possession. However, he and the company president soon candidly discover that this little piece of junk, which Olimar had brought back with him as a souvenir, is worth a surprising amount of money, or pocos as their currency is called. But its value comes from the fact that it's a relic, or a curio from an uncharted planet, not from the fact that it's shiny. Remember this distinction because it's going to become important later. Now, as a result of this discovery, Olimar is sent back to the Pikmin planet on the one remaining company ship in order to gather more junk from the planet to sell as treasure back on Hocotate. This is the framing device for why your objective is to collect random crap in Pikmin 2. It's because these objects are relics, or curiosities, on the Hocotate market. They don't have any weird, hidden properties, they're not shiny, they're just treasures with monetary value. And because Olimar was actually prepped for a lengthy expedition this time, he brings enough supplies and breathable air that he's not on a time limit. You can stay for as many days as you want to collect the treasure you need. Again, it's simple, but it makes sense. Pikmin 3 then did something very interesting by creating a sort of halfway point between the setups of Pikmin 1 and 2. The third entry introduces us to the Kopites, who appear to be basically the same species as the Hocotatians, but sort of like a different ethnicity or something. They're basically identical to Hocotatians physiologically, but they look a little different, and they hail from a different planet, although they're clearly part of whatever interstellar network Hocotate Freight delivers their wares to. Anyway, the setup of Pikmin 3 is that the planet Kopai is running dangerously low on food. In response to this, they've launched probes all across the galaxy to seek out planets with new sustainable sources of growable sustenance for them to bring home and cultivate on their own soil. This, of course, leads them to the Pikmin planet with its rich variety of real-world fruit. As a side note, Pikmin 3's intro itself is probably my favorite in the entire series. The opening to 2 is kind of more fun to watch because it's conceptually quite funny, the Hokotate Freight president is such a goofball, and it has this Lost-style, we have to go back energy, what with Olimar being turned right back around almost the instant he gets home. But the intro to 3 is a whole greater than the sum of its parts in a really special way for me. Something about its sweeping, orchestral, Disney World Epcot-sounding music track accompanying the narration and beep-boop sci-fi noises, culminating in the silence of space and then punctuated with that haunting rendition of the classic Pikmin leitmotif as the crew gets separated in the fall from their vessel. Oof. Let me tell you, when you were waiting 10 real-world years for this game to release, that motif at the end hit different, as the kids say. It absolutely nailed that grand return feel, and it still gives me chills every time. I frickin' love this intro. Anyway, because there's a food shortage on Koppai to begin with, the crew of the SS Drake are unable to pack a great deal of rations for their expedition, so Pikmin 3 features a soft time limit, where of the fruit you collect from day to day, one is sacrificed to feed the crew. Ultimately, this doesn't create any real pressure, aside from one narrative event during which all of their resources are stolen for a day, but again, it's a logical setup. You collect fruit to both feed your crew and bring home seeds to cultivate on their starving world. You collect fruit because it is naturally involved in the concept of sustenance, not because it's shiny or sparkly. I think you see where I'm going with this. Now, before we finally hit Pikmin 4, we have to make a pit stop at the series' sole spin-off entry, Hey Pikmin. Hey Pikmin released at the tail end of what I call Nintendo's hubris era, where they made baffling decision after baffling decision with regard to the games they chose to produce. Perhaps most infamously, this was the period of time during which they took beloved but long-dormant cult classic IPs out of hibernation in order to produce these alarmingly bland and painfully mediocre 2D platformer spin-offs. These games didn't capture any of the qualities that had drawn fans to their respective franchises in the first place, and they were too drab and uninspired to attract new fans. Chibi Robo Ziplash and Hey Pikmin are the two most prominent examples of this, but the era also featured games like Paper Mario Color Splash and Metroid Prime Federation Force, which aren't 2D platformers, but you get the idea. Anyway, I'm getting off track. My point is that Hey Pikmin reeked of hubris-era Nintendo. The setups for the mainline Pikmin games all share this feature of being humorously delivered but dire in concept, and it's very compelling. They're also impressively distinct from each other, managing to frame their shared core objective of collecting things in different contexts that makes them feel different narratively, even when they're indistinguishable mechanically. Even recurring tropes, such as the crash landings, are handled differently from game to game. In the original title, the crash ravages Olimar's ship and sets up the central conflict. In Pikmin 2, it serves as an excuse to briefly separate Olimar and Louie upon their arrival back at the Pikmin planet, and in Pikmin 3, it serves as an excuse not only to separate the crew for the first few days, but cause them to lose the cosmic drive key, which effectively strands them like in Pikmin 1 without disassembling the entire ship and totally recycling the core objective of that title. It's actually really tasteful and creatively handled. But we're talking about Hey Pikmin now. Hey Pikmin decides, you know what? Pikmin can be just like Mario. Olimar hitting an asteroid and crash landing can be verbatim recycled, the same way Bowser kidnapping Peach can. Let's just do that again. Now, they did add a couple of wrinkles, but they only served to make the premise worse. First of all, there's no time limit in this game. Olimar has all the air and resources he could possibly need, I guess, despite this not being a planned expedition. Additionally, Hey Pikmin is the only game in the series confirmed to take place on a different planet from the usual one, and yet it has exactly the same collection of life forms and real-world man-made junk for some reason, which is just insane and clearly not thought out. What a ridiculous coincidence. But what's arguably even worse is that Olimar's ship needs fuel, and that fuel comes in the form of Sparklium. What is Sparklium, you ask? I don't know! Sparklium is collected from the same kinds of treasures that you gather in Pikmin 2, but here it's being framed as a fuel source. The treasures in Hey Pikmin all have this gleam or sheen. In other words, they sparkle. And this sparkle is, I presume, what imbues them with extractable sparklium. But this is a nonsense concept! Okay, bright colors and shimmer effects do not equal fuel source. This has no basis in reality, or even pre-established Hokotation or Kopite technology. I realize Pikmin has always had surrealist elements, such as many of the cave layouts in Pikmin 2, but their fundamental premises and overarching objectives have always been grounded in reality. Sparklium, on the other hand, is just some slapdash bullshit Miyamoto either threw together or approved of because gamers don't care about story, according to him. I mean, he's the genius, so he must be right. We've all seen the evidence. Games like The Last of Us, God of War, Persona 5, and Red Dead Redemption 2 all massively underperforming on the market. Hordes of fans lamenting the changes to the Paper Mario series. Clearly, gamers don't want stories, right, Miyamoto? We just want to be told, hey, idiot, fuck you, you smooth-brained Neanderthal. Go gather shiny objects because I told you. No, you can't have actual narrative motivation. Shut up and eat your fucking Sparklium! So I was hit with more than a tinge of annoyance when Pikmin 4 decided to not only recycle the Pikmin 1 setup again, as far as Olimar is concerned, but bring back that godforsaken Sparklium concept. And it works exactly as it did in Hey Pikmin. It makes no sense. Sparklium is a source of fuel, and it's extracted from shiny objects. Hell, the examples we're given in the explanation in Pikmin 4 are a strawberry and a rubber duck. Like, are you kidding me? Those two objects have nothing in common. They don't even sparkle like that in real life. Why are we doing Sparklium again? This is a mainline title. Sparklium converter be damned. This is not a valid energy source. I'm sorry, I just had to grouch about this a little. I know, I'm the only one who cares about this. I made a 10-minute nitpick video about a game that isn't even out yet. I'm insane. But please don't get the wrong idea. I'm a big ol' Pikmin fan. The demo was a ton of fun, and everything that's really important to the game and the series seems to have been nailed here. It's just, I hate when the standards for things like this plummet out of nowhere. The part of the intro where the player character is introduced has just as much of that old-school charm as any of the older titles, and the whole rescue the rescue corps concept is great. Pikmin 4 doesn't flunk out narratively or anything. I like that they took the bad ending of Pikmin 1 and fleshed out the concept as part of the premise. Olimar going native and taking on a somewhat antagonistic role is really cool and fun. I just want Sparklium to die. The fuel shortage idea is fine, great even, but Pikmin can do so much better than Sparklium. I do not want to see this shit again in Pikmin 5. And that's all I have to say about that. But please let me know what you think in the comments. I say this all the time, but it's true. I genuinely want to have a conversation, and I actually do read and respond to comments. I'm not just telling you to do this for the benefit of the channel. That said, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, you know what to do. Blah blah blah, like and subscribe, shill, etc. Alright, see you next time. Thanks for watching.